Hi, I'm Kiran Trace. I'm so glad you're with us. Today we're going to look at past lives. It's a little woo-woo, but it comes up a lot in all kinds of conversations when we're talking about personal development. So the three of us, myself and the lovely Cami Carlo and Leela Suter, are going to crack this open a bit. Here we go. Hi, I'm Kiran Trace. Welcome to Humans Decoded, a story of hobbits, fairies, elves, dwarfs, gnomes, and humans. If you get lost at any point, there is a deep dive on all the different avatars in episode 1. It includes notes. Thank you for joining us in a fun little chat about the vast potential of our human makeup. Hi, Leela.
Hi, Kiran. Hi, Cam. Hi, lovely audience.
Hey, everybody.
Girls, we're back, and we are cracking into the story of past lives. And that's a rich and ripe one because the three of us work with that juicy material quite a lot. But I think that there's a lot of mystery around it and a lot of skepticism and fear also. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, I agree. It's such juicy terrain. And in my own experience, it's always been such a given. Like, of course, it makes so much sense in my own worldview, in my own experiences, in my own understanding of how life works. But if I was ever talking to a normie, I would feel too embarrassed to admit it. So that's why I asked if we could do an episode on past lives, partly for me. So I have like kind of go-to understanding that I can kind of present. Like, actually, here are the facts, if it's appropriate. Not that I'm here to convince anybody, but it feels like it'd be nice to have like a total overview of it as well.
Great too, because I think a lot of us decoders, all of you guys, like we do face that. Like there's this place where it's like, oh, I'm not sure if you're a decoder or a normie. And but I want to tell you about this thing.
I mean, I can only echo Cam here. It's so normal and obvious for me to, talk about past lives, know that they're true. And then I'm confused, or I'm like, I don't get why there's all these offers out there, all this spiritual stuff to lead you to meet your past life. I was like, what? Why would we need to make a whole show out of that? I feel like that's only adding to the maybe skepticism or to the misunderstandings that are around about what is a past life.
Yeah, it makes it a little even more woo-woo.
Yeah.
I agree. I never fully trust the let me tell you about your past life. I always think that generally that's like there's always going to be the other person's filter in it. And what happens in my experience is that, when someone else is telling someone about their past lives, it tends to overly elevate that past life. And then it makes the life either super special or more often what I come across is it traumatizes people too. I was working with this teacher and they told me my past life was X, Y, and Z, and I don't know what to do about that. It's sort of what I hear a bit, but the whole process of someone else telling you about your past lives, I think it just elevates it. It puts it in this camp that you guys are talking about. I grew up with a very ordinary experience of those past lives. My older sister, who's a human and ironically, most people would think of as a normie. She is actually very psychic and has a lot of, just she gets all these imprints. And I lived in a family that made no bother about that. That was it was just average. It was just like Monday night, like we're eating dinner And my mom's like, "How's your day?" And my sister's like, "That little boy's bothering me again." And my mother's like, "Where is he?" "Well, he's sitting on the TV." "Oh, can you ask him to leave? Does he need something?" Like, so my sister was always seeing ghosts, and she was always seeing past lives, and she was all, like, and it was really just an ordinary aspect of our household and our life. My mother would refer to past lives in herself, like, so there was this sort of, um it just is, and it was so directly experiential. It was neither questioned nor made up into anything. So maybe that's part of why I can't fully swallow the elevated position of a past life.
I love how ordinary it was for you, because there can be such an allure, like such a kind of myth status to a past life, and you can get really lost in, like, its importance, or like, who was I and who were my relatives and who have I repeated here, and then you sort of lose sight of what's actually, in this life right now.
Yeah, you can sure get lost in the old imprints, and it's like you can get so involved in what you're remembering of a past life, and it feels like I have to analyze this, I must understand, and probably it's important to remember, that I might have been nailed to a cross somewhere. It's important to I don't know, find out about that person or whatever. But all it is just this distraction away, like Cami said, from what is right now, from this moment. And in truth, it's not important to hold on to that sort of old imprint, to that old memory.
And I also feel like you can kind of make it about you having this ability to see the past life, like, ooh, now I'm psychic. Yeah, and then suddenly you find yourself buying a shawl and a crystal ball, and, get lost in a kind of excavation to find your Cleopatra Egyptian roots. And you're kind of down a whole rabbit hole, which can very much distort the information that might actually be coming up for you.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that also what I notice is that in my life or my experience, I see that people use it often to justify this really unskillful and maybe misaligned choice by bolstering it across this other lifetime. Like, especially romantically, I see that all the time. Like, I had this dear friend, and he met this woman, and they have such a, they know each other from before, they have this past life together, and in truth they brought out the worst in each other, and individually they were rather successful, connected, but very different worlds. He taught at Stanford and had this very, very connected group of lovely friends that were sort of consciousness divers. And he was really close, very close with his family. And I think she, in the same world, she comes from an immigrant family, very, very tight, big family from Iran, and was very successful, kind of Wall Street trader. So very different worlds, but man, they believed that they had a lot of unresolved past life. And wow, by the end of that relationship, which wasn't even very long, like 18 months or something, but they had like lost their friends, lost jobs, lost family members, because they were the worst of themselves, but kept
Oh, no.
clinging to this notion of like, it's so important that we're together. Um, and honestly, I see that relatively a lot. I saw that in my own mother, in a terrible relationship with this man, and being like, well, these past lives we've had together. And bleh.
Yeah, we know. It's no bueno. When you think there's a soulmate, run for your life. Just get the fuck out of there. You can certainly, oh God, I mean, you can get so delusional when you sort of want to pull past life details into this lifetime to justify, yeah, as Kiran said, any not very wise decisions. And then and it's the whole thing is often be linked to such intense amounts of pain and terror. Like uncovering past lives, there can be such trauma. And then I feel like that's another challenge. How do you then deal with it?
Right. Okay, let's also crack open what this is. So for me, really where it became really obvious for me is when I first had my awakening. There was people in my life at the time who were in fact from other lifetimes. And also I kept sort of being in these multiple timelines at once. So I couldn't localize it, for instance, as Kiran in this lifetime. I was also Mary and I was also June. And those timelines were kind of laying in simultaneously, and I didn't know which one I was. And this is a really weird yet very common experience once I started teaching. And really I'm kind of the teacher's teacher. And a lot of some of my very first clients, of course, were teachers. And they would often talk about this, or people who are newly awakened would often talk about this. Like there's these multiple timelines going, and I don't know what timeline I'm in. And so the actual sort of best explanation or metaphor I can give is that it's because time is this illusional movement. And when you're existing inside of time, it's very difficult to imagine that it's illusionary because our mind can't hold that. But when we have this awakening into original nature, we actually deeply dissolve into the present moment. And then here's the present moment, and then suddenly it becomes obvious there's just this moment. There's no past, there's no future, there's just this moment. And I like to use this metaphor. It's like if you were in you went to visit a park and there's this interpretive map, and usually they're made of like paper mache and they have little lights on them, and you can like push the button and then it lights up over at the waterfalls, and then you push a button and it lights up over like the big forest. Um, and so, but that interpretive map is right here in front of you. It's all here. And you're pushing the button and these different lights light up right here, right now. And so this very common experience happens when people awaken out of time into their original nature and into the present moment. These lights are going off, but instead of the waterfalls or the big forest or the big tree, it's like it's June and Mary and Kiran, and those three lights are on at the same time. And if it's this interpretive map, it's very easy to see that. Yeah, you can just it's like I want to go from the big falls to the big forest and then over to the big tree, like light up all three and let's see the pathway. So time is actually something that is like now in this one moment, like circular, spirally, instead of this like horizontal line that we usually draw it as. Now, I don't want to make it a problem because time is lovely. It's a lovely, lovely aspect of form. And when we're playing in the field of it, it's very important. But when we awaken to original nature, it's a optional importance. It's an open-handed importance. So it's just like the information about all of our various lives is ironically right here. And you don't actually need to be awakened to your original nature to get tastes of it. Like it pops up.
Yeah, it's like surprisingly normal. I was really surprised to have a chat with Sam's mom, who we interviewed Sam a few weeks ago, so you might know him. But she's a kind of British middle class, very no nonsense human. So a normie. And I can't remember what the context was, but past lives came up, and she just turned to me very casually and said, "Oh yeah, I used to be a black man in my past life." Like it was absolutely nothing. And I've also had experiences of just recognizing people all the time. Like we had a gardener come and work for us, and I was like, "Oh yeah, you and me used to be monks together." I didn't actually tell him this, but it just kind of pops up. And the same with the boyfriend I had. Like, we recognized each other. I was like, oh, you were a woman and I was a man. And he was like, yeah, in Roman times. So we were like, uh-huh.
Oh, that's so sweet. For me, I would often come across these past lives when I follow a certain pain body, all the way down. And it's like this, I don't know, archaeological excavation site. And at the end, you reach like the dinosaur bones. That's the root of the pain body. And at some point, I was following this, good, deep, unworthy pain body, a thick one. And then the dinosaur bone was sort of this innocent woman who was so shocked to be abandoned from what felt like paradise. And this abandonment then suddenly made her less than. It made her into sort of a second-class citizen. And gosh, I mean, the intensity of that wound, that was a lot. That was really a lot. And I feel like the only way to meet such intensity or to meet, that pain is, like Kiran said, it's like leaning so far back into awareness or into the moment that time thing just collapses, it dissolves. And you can feel or see that interactive map where the lights just go off. And then to me, it feels like you can reach over there to the big forest and pick up that, innocent woman that felt like she's been kicked out of paradise. And you can pick her up and put her in your lap or on your chest. And just let her be loved now, here.
That's so beautiful. And I agree that when these sort of past life connections start to come up, they can be really pivotal in your healing journey. I had a similar thread where I was following this wound, and what came up was this kind of scene where I was a woman in like medieval times holding a lantern and believing I'd been betrayed. And so kind of guarding the castle so that no one would come in. And she was just screaming like, betrayal, betrayal. And it was so funny because in my current life at the time, so many of my very intimate, very sweet, very spacious relationships just kept getting jabbed with this like electrocution, like betrayal. And it felt so incongruous, like so completely unlinked to the actual what was happening, in 2023 or whenever it was, Cami life. So yeah, just finding those links that far back, it just enabled like this huge healing piece in my current relationships now.
I think that's a cool little hint that you're giving out, that if your response in a moment is incongruous or overly traumatized, it can be pointing to unresolved trauma. And maybe that seems obvious, but kind of what we're hinting at is it could be unresolved trauma way in the past. And, I often thought during COVID, if I came across people who were just like absolutely terrified, for me, it was like this sort of like, obviously they died in the 1918 flu epidemic. Like, it was just like this, like, really like ordinary kind of thing for me. Oh, you're one of the people who died in the 1918 flu epidemic. Like, there's no, like we can stay 5 feet apart and we can wash our hands and we can, find solutions. But those people were just so gripped. It's like, oh, you've got some unresolved trauma probably from back in the turn of the century. And I actually have that same response to people who are so gripped in terror to fly. I'm like, "Oh, you were one of those pilots in World War II and you died in the plane crash." Like, "Oh, I totally get it." I see you. I see you. I hear you. And so I think there's a way that we can like soft-handedly respect that some of our traumatized responses are coming from our systems with information we're not yet aware of.
Yeah, and then I find it's not very helpful to zoom in too closely, because then it feels like, oh shit, now I have to do something about that, having been a pilot in the Second World War. But you don't have to deal with all these details. It's not on you. The true medicine is awareness looking, not the stick figure you, the separate self you. And it sounds so simple. It is very simple. It's not easy. Not very easy, but we have all kinds of support for you over here. Like there's our lovely classes where you directly learn how to be with, that pain and the memory. Or you can book sessions with me, which is this wonderful experience of simply bathing in a source field and maybe ultimately at some point getting a sense of what it is to see your interactive map.
Yeah, and I feel like you don't necessarily have to be aware of any of it. Like you just get to heal, and that it just expresses in your own system in whatever way it's going to. Like it's totally unique for everyone. So yeah, you don't have to get too involved in the details. But I do love this visual we have of the interactive map kind of lighting up.
Lots of times if you're around kids, like kids will often bring up their stuff. Like kids are still in touch with their map in many ways. I remember visiting this friend. This is years ago. I was a teenager and I was visiting this friend who had this little boy, Aiden Django. And I remember like she opened this cupboard door of a cupboard they don't usually open. And this little guy, he's like 2.5 or something. And he looks at the top shelf and there's this saxophone. And he says to his mom, like, "What that?" And she goes, "Oh, that's my old saxophone." And it's like this cute moment of like, "Do you want me to bring it down, buddy?" And so she lifts the saxophone down and it's, the size of him, right? And he's so excited by it. So she puts the little thing around him and shows him how to hold the fingers. And this little guy lays in and plays a whole scale. And we're just like shocked. But here's the great part. We're super shocked. And Diane's looking at me and I'm looking at her. And then Aiden looks up at her and says, "Mom, where's my turtleneck?" So
Wow.
I don't know, Miles. Like, I don't know. Django Reinhardt. Like, I don't know. And this stuff comes out of kids all the time. It comes out of us all the time. So there's also this invitation of like, you don't have to go digging. Like, you don't have to go to a course and learn how to read about your past lives. And you don't have to go digging. You can actually just have faith that if you find yourself kind of incongruous, whether it's like the 2-year-old asking for his turtleneck after he plays the full scales on the sax, or you screaming betrayal to this really sweet, nothing just happened interaction, it's like it's totally normal. It's fine. We don't have to make a big thing about it. We don't have to like suddenly search YouTubes for, like details. Like it's just a little sitting back in yourself and just a little bit of following that, whether it's the traumatic response or the memory or something down, will open up your interpretive map because it's all right now. It's sitting right now. And in your own being, if it's a real question or a real alive piece in you, that's sort of like, hey, what's this information about? If it's open-handed, that part on your own little interpretive map will light up. And I think that we keep saying this, and Leela and Cami have said it again and again. It doesn't mean that lifetime is more important than this one. And it's just all now. So we can be a little less woo-woo about it, a little less special about it, and a little less traumatized about it. And on the one side, that's really important if it's like Django Reinhardt or Miles Davis or something like that. But it's really important if one of those lights up and it was like, you're a Nazi, you know?
Yeah.
Or you were somebody dark doing dark deeds,
I mean,
like,
chances are, you often say that, Kieran, we've all been everything, all of them, the good and the bad, or if you want to
yes.
use these words.
Yeah, I'm always like, you've been the witch and you've been the Inquisition. Like
Yeah.
you were thrown on the fire for sure, but you also threw people on the fire. So, like you've done it all and you've been him and you've been her. And we can get really stuck, we can get stuck in this place of like, I was burned. I will be,
Mm-hmm.
like, "Rah, ah." And it's like, yeah, but how about that lifetime where you burned everyone else? Um, and then we can kind of open-handedly be with it in like, how is it impacting in this moment? Right? Or
Mm.
how is it, or is it? And that's a good point too. It may not, honest to God, it may have nothing to do with you in this moment, in which case we really don't need to go digging. Like if you're not looking at some incongruous or deeply traumatized or really charged movement, then what is more alive now is what's important.
Yeah, it turns out this is the opportunity. This is the privilege. Like this lifetime, you're conscious of it now. That's your inroad to just bathe it all in source. And I love how we've been talking about the interactive map because it's all simultaneous. So just one really delicious soak in source can touch all of those pieces, and you don't even really have to direct them. It's kind of got its own flow, its own intelligence. I love how Kiran says open-handed. Like that's always like such a physical body exhale for me because it reminds me that like I don't have to be in charge of the healing. Like it's already what is, like it's already the most dominant flow here. So it's just a leaning back and becoming conscious of it and allowing it. And it's not a chore. It's so delicious.
That feels like a sweet note to park this little chat on. Obviously, it reminds me of many other streams, and I think we'll pick them up in more episodes to come. Like, there's, in the spiritual culture, there's this whole star seed movement where it becomes like super important that your past life was not on this planet. But we'll park it here for now. But one thing I want to say is that this is the last day to register for a retreat. We have this sweet block of rooms, this beautiful resort that we go to. There's other groups there, so the rooms that we have, our block of rooms, is really limited. And today's the very last day to register, and we're giving everybody this really nice discount, big discount, $500 off. If you just register, we'll probably sell out. Hopefully, we'll sell out. So this is just a reminder, if you wanted one of our seats at retreat, today's the last day. I actually haven't checked the numbers, so I don't know how many seats we have left. But this is your call to action. If you're going to be with us in person, the beautiful Cami, the beautiful Leela, myself, obviously, for this sweet, incredible week we keep talking about. Simone will be there. Sam will be there. Zoe, who you listened to in the past, will be there. You already know a bunch of us. So, and we'd love to spend some time in person with you too.
Yes, come please.
Amen.
So there you go. Come join us on a really life transforming week that will up-level you in every way possible, actually. And we love you, and we'll be here next week with some juicy materials.
Yay, love you, bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you for listening. We obviously love hearing what you think. Your feedback helps us make a better show for you to listen to. So feel free to comment, and you can do it at Facebook, which is the Humans Decoded podcast. And if you're not on social, you can always email any questions to us at outreach@kirantrace.com. And thanks for listening. We love you.